afterwards if you want to. If you don't want you to appear on the screen at all, then please have your video off. And then also please make sure you're muted, just so we don't get any background noise as we go. So without further ado, if we can perhaps go to the first slide. So we're going to start in a moment with a video of an amazing young person who we worked with many years ago, who's now made a success of her life. And then we're going to look at what's going on both nationally and locally in terms of youth homelessness and some of the broader contexts we're working in. We're going to share some data with you we did with a very exciting project at the end of last year around young people in Hertfordshire. And then, because so much of the challenge for us is about preventing youth homelessness, it's not just dealing with it when the problem arises, but preventing it in the first place. Mika's going to run through some of the highlights of what's going on in terms of prevention currently. And then we're going to finish with a couple of events. So let's begin with Kaylee's story. So as I said, Kaylee is someone who we worked with a few years ago who approached us recently. It was brilliant to hear from her, and you're going to hear from her a little bit about what happened to her when she worked with us all that time ago. So over to the video.
My name's Kaylee Muldoon. I'm the owner of Renaudin's Clinic and Academy. I live in St Albans, and the clinic is based in Hertfordshire. The Hertfordshire homeless helped me a lot when I was young, so I was homeless at a young age. And without them, I would never have had my first flat. I wouldn't have had that safety to be able to go on and continue my life. There was a break-up in my mum and dad's marriage, so I was living with my grandfather at the time. He ended up finding Hertfordshire homeless and taking me in, where I had a lot of help. Within 3 weeks I was put into a hostel, which then obviously I went on to get my first council house. So I was staying with friends or staying with different members of the family at the time. So till it got to the point where I knew that I had to be settled somewhere in one place. And I was always very independent, even from young. So I just wanted to build my own. That's when my granddad knew I need to help her get a place. So at the time I was feeling very lost. I didn't know what way I was going. I didn't know where my future was going, because I didn't have a base. Like, you need a base. You need somewhere where you can lay your head at night and know you can get up, get your bag ready for school, or get your clothes washed and dressed to go to work. But I never had that security. So yeah, I felt very lost at the time. So what I remember, when I went into Hertfordshire homeless with my granddad, we sat down with a lady, and she was so good, so helpful. She got me into other charities. They got me into the hostel in 3 weeks, and got me a bed and a roof, basically. Any situation like that, you can get out of it, and that's really, really important for the youngster to know. And Hertfordshire homeless can help with that. It is there for you to take, but it's for you to also be able to take the opportunity to make your own life for yourself and not settle for what you see around you. If you don't do that, you're going to repeat the exact same cycles with your own children when you do have them, because that's all you know. I would say to anyone who's going to make a donation is that it is life-changing. This is going to shape their future, and you don't understand how important it is to have Hertfordshire homeless doing this for youngsters. Without them, I wouldn't be sitting here talking like this now, and talking of my achievements, and now my son's life has changed for it as well. So I'm grateful for that.
So many thanks again to Kaylee for contacting us and sharing her story with us. And I think it's just uplifting, isn't it, to see the difference that all of us can make, whether it's at Hearts Young Homeless or other organisations, the difference we can make in terms of people's long-term life ahead of them. So let's start off, shall we, with just a look at what's going on nationally. And For those of you who've been on previous updates, this will be familiar, using some of the data that our colleagues at Citizens Advice pulled together. And this just shows from 2014 on the left to 2023 on the right, the number of people approaching Citizens Advice across the country with issues related to the cost of living. And certainly the steep increase year on year from 2020 onwards is really apparent in these figures. The different colours make up different types of issues that people approach Citizens Advice with. But I think it's a really useful reminder that while money might not be the sole factor that's driving homelessness, it's there in the background, it's in people's lives, whether it's their families or whether it's the young people themselves. So, and the early indications are from Citizens Advice that the figures for 2024, the first few months of 2024, those have carried on increasing. So that's the sort of context in which we're working. If we just turn for a moment to some of the funding that faces young people, and if we look at young people's income, so this slide doesn't affect all young people, but for many young people, they might either be on universal credit or on national minimum wage jobs. And I think what's been undoubtedly a good change from the 1st of April is the increase in both the level of universal credit and the level of national minimum wage. And for anyone who's unsure, the universal credit limits, that's per month, that's not per week, that's how much money you get per month. But the important thing here, and the point we want to stress, because it's part of the national campaigning that we and others have been pushing through, the campaign for a strategy for youth homelessness, is look at the difference in ages. So if you're under 25, you get the best part of £80 less than if you're over 25 in terms of universal credit. And if you're on the minimum wage, it's about £3 less if you're under 21. Now, that feels counterintuitive. It feels discriminatory against young people. But perhaps then the situation changes when we look at their expenditure. So one of the things we do quite regularly is monitor what the costs are for young people. So if we've then recently gone through some of the key areas of expenditure for young people on the next slide, and it's an interesting one just to think through. Okay, how much less do young people pay compared to adults on items such as rent, electricity, gas, water, broadband, and so on. And it's just worth you just taking a moment to think which of those you think will be the highest reduction in cost. And then if we can share with you what the reduced cost is for young people for each of these items, we see actually for none of them are young people's costs any less than for adults. And yet, as a society, we're paying them less if they're on universal credit or in national minimum wage jobs. And that for us is a real problem that makes it much harder for young people to break out of the cycle of youth homelessness or the threat of homelessness if they're in dire straits in their early years. Okay, so that's something about income. We then, the government recently published their updated figures on national homelessness. So this is all ages and it's across the country. So it's not just young people, but the quarterly statistics that were released recently show how the picture is still getting worse by quite a significant amount, with a 14% increase in the number of children who are homeless and part of homeless households, the rise in the number of people being owed a main homelessness duty of 16%. And then the increase in temporary accommodation. And it was interesting, I was reading an article this morning, actually, where someone who used to work for Shelter many years ago was talking about the campaign they did back in the 80s, saying how shocking it was that 12,000 households were in temporary accommodation over Christmas. And at the time, that was seen as terrible. Now we have over 100,000 households placed in temporary accommodation. We're also seeing an increase in the number of people sleeping on the streets. Now, that's just always the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? For anyone who knows about homelessness, it's the visible street homelessness is the tip of the iceberg, especially when it comes to young people. But a 27% increase year on year in the number of people sleeping rough indicates what's going on underneath. So that's the national picture. If we then just come down to the regional level, And we're going to start looking at youth homelessness now. So the map of the UK there, the darker the colour, the higher the proportion of young people in that region who are facing homelessness. And this is data from Centrepoint. They did their big survey earlier, a couple of months ago, of all the data from local authorities across the country around young people who present as homeless or at risk of homelessness. And what we can see there is in the east of England, the region that Hertfordshire is in, 2.45% of all young people are facing homelessness. That is a higher rate in our region of the country than for any other region of England and Wales. And that feels quite shocking, doesn't it? Because that tells us something that's going on in the environment within which we operate. Then we're going to turn to the increase in numbers in Hertfordshire. So you might be familiar, we shared numbers on last year's figures, 21-22, I think it was this time last year. What we've seen, and again, this is Centrepoint data, on the right-hand side there is each of the 10 local authorities in Hertfordshire, is how many young people in 22-23 approached that local authority because they were homeless or at risk of homelessness. Now, Stevenage didn't provide data this year. They didn't respond to the Freedom of Information request. There's usually around 250, 300 young people in Stevenage who face homelessness year on year. But even without that, the total had increased from just over 2,300 to just over 3,000. That's a significant increase in 1 year in the number of young people facing homelessness in our county here in Hertfordshire. So this for us is the scale of the challenge. That's why we're here at Hearts and Homeless. Those are the numbers we need to be addressing. And we're going to talk a bit more about how we're going to do that shortly and some of the work we're doing to help bring those numbers down so that we don't see that number of young people facing homelessness. But before we do that, just want to share with you some data around some work we did on what does the young population in Hertfordshire look like? What's changed over the last few years? What's the makeup of the young people in our county? So we did a fantastic exercise with a national charity called DataKind UK last autumn, and the picture on the screen there is of a bunch of amazing 20 or so data analysts, data specialists, some volunteers. They're all volunteers. They gave up a weekend back in November to go through all of our service user data, all anonymized, and also lots of the publicly available information like census, other sources. And the exercise, the challenge we gave them was to answer the 3 questions on the left, which is, broadly speaking, how are we helping the young people we're working with? Who are the young people in Hertfordshire? And then is there a mismatch? So the key driver for us is, are there groups of young people in Hertfordshire where we're not seeing as many of as perhaps we should? So before we turn to the next slide, I just want to try doing a little Zoom poll. And this is just to test everyone's understanding or your best guess about where most young people are in Hertfordshire. So in a minute, the poll's going to pop up. It's going to list the 10 districts, the 10 boroughs in Hertfordshire. And I want you to say, in which of those do you think the highest number of young people live? So where are the young people most concentrated in Hertfordshire? So just give you a moment to fill in that poll. And while doing that, I've just noticed I'm purple for some reason. So I'm going to turn my camera off and then back on. This has solved a mystery. We always thought this was a Teams problem, but it's clearly not a Teams problem because we're on Zoom. This is a problem with my laptop. So I have to speak to our IT team about getting that fixed. So apologies, I don't know how long I've been purple for, but the purple has gone now. So I don't know if people have been able to answer the Zoom poll. Or maybe it's not working. I don't know whether we have. Yes, we have the results in. Right, this is interesting. So if we look on our screens there, the numbers should have jumped up on screen for you. So we have people in the lead, we have Broxbourne, closely followed by Stevenage. Way down the bottom, we have Three Rivers and St Albans with 0%. So it's really interesting, isn't it? The different views, people's perceptions of where young people are located in Hertfordshire. So if we can close the poll and turn to the next slide. And this shows you, this is the last census data. Where are young people in Hertfordshire? Interestingly, the highest concentrations are in Dacorum and St Albans, right near the top there, then East Hertfordshire, Welling Hatfield. Those of you who went for Broxbourne, in fact, that's the third lowest youth population in Hertfordshire, right down near the bottom there. And it's just a really interesting sense of, okay, where are the young people in our county, ranging from 25,000 in Stevenage up to nearly 45,000 in Dacorum. And so we just thought that was interesting. It was something we didn't know. The data is publicly available, but it's a useful exercise in seeing where the people we might be working with live across the county. We then asked the people at DataKind, our volunteers, to tell us what's going on around the ethnicity of young people in Hertfordshire. And so they looked at the current census that's just come out, the previous one and the one before that. So over a 20-odd year span, what's happened to what's changed? And we've seen increasing diversity amongst young people in Hertfordshire, with fairly substantial increases in the number of people from Asian and Black community and from mixed ethnicity, and a 15.5% decrease in the proportion of young people who come from a white background. So many of us will know that. We know that, we see that from our work, whether we're Hearts and Homeless or other organisations that are with us today. But that it does give you a sense of how the population is changing and has changed. And we need to be able to match that. And one of the areas that we know we've got slight gaps in is we're not seeing as many Asian young people amongst our service users as perhaps we should do. So that's something we're going to tackle over the year ahead, just to see what is it we can do to reach people who may need us, who aren't receiving our services at the moment. Okay, so then moving on from ethnicity, we then got the first of a few maps of Hertfordshire. Apparently I like maps, not everyone likes maps. So bear with us. If you don't like maps, then just listen to what I'm saying. But if you do, there's some interesting data coming up here. So what you have there is the map of Hertfordshire with the 10 districts. And this is looking at housing deprivation. So one of the factors, whenever you hear the government talk about multiple deprivation indices, one of them is around what are the barriers to people accessing housing and local services. And here, the darker the colour, the higher the barriers. So that to use the shorthand, the higher the level of housing deprivation. And what we see when you look at it a borough by borough basis is there's quite a hefty block along the southern edge of Hertfordshire, where we're bordering London, which is perhaps what people might think, is that those are the parts of the county where the barriers to accessing housing are highest. And that could be through level of how high it was made up of level of rent in the private rented sector, and also availability of social housing are two of the key factors there. What's interesting though is then when you break it down below the whole borough level, you break up each district into smaller units, in the jargon lower super output areas, and you come up with this map, which suddenly looks very different. And in here, the areas in red are actually in the top 10% nationally for the level of housing deprivation, or barriers to housing and services. Top 10% nationally. And there you see, there's a huge spread across pretty much every part of Hertfordshire. And no longer is the most significant problem in the southern part of the county. And that to us indicates why we operate across the whole of Hertfordshire. And that it's not just about, is it urban or rural? Is it areas of affluence or deprivation? But actually the ability for people to access housing, whether that's private rented or social housing, there are significant areas of problem across the whole county. So before we show the next slide, I want to do another little Zoom poll, because one of the things we asked the team at DataKind to do for us was to look at when you look at the size of the young population in each borough and each district of Hertfordshire, and then work out the levels of youth homelessness across Hertfordshire. Where is the prevalence highest? Where is there the highest proportion of young people facing youth homelessness in Hertfordshire? So again, it's by the 10 districts, and perhaps if you can, sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry, we've just been told that we're having slight poll difficulties, so we're not going to do a poll. So I'm just going to, if we bring up the slide instead. So this is again the map of Hertfordshire. Where is there the highest prevalence of youth homelessness? And once again, the darker the area, the higher proportion. And what we see here is a slightly different picture to what we've seen on some of the other slides. So here it's Stevenage, and it's a little dark blue splodge near the top, and then Welwyn Hatfield underneath that. We're in Hatfield at the moment, our office. So that's where you've got the highest prevalence of youth homelessness across Hertfordshire. So that's a number of young people who are homeless compared to the size of the population in that district or borough. So again, that just gives us a good sense, and hopefully many people on this call, of where you're seeing more levels of youth homelessness. So we've seen that the absolute numbers, we've seen the changing youth population, and then we've seen where people have barriers to housing, and then where we've got youth homelessness as the highest rate. So if you don't like maps, apologies for the last 10 minutes. If you do like maps, hopefully you found that useful and interesting. But I just want to finish by saying I mentioned earlier about the national campaign for a strategy to end youth homelessness. And this is a campaign that we're really proud to be part of. There's over 120 charities who've taken part. It's led by charities like Centrepoint and New Horizon Youth Centre, who we get on really well with, who operate in Camden and Islington. And through that campaign, one of the biggest things that I know many of you have helped us with is to sign the petition. And the petition is now closed, but there's over 15,000 signatures for that petition calling on the government to have a strategy to end youth homelessness. What was particularly heartening for us is that the number of signatories from all across Hertfordshire was high compared to the rest of the country, and that to us is a really good indication of the level of engagement of you and your colleagues and other supporters around the county in this issue of youth homelessness. So thank you to everyone who did sign that petition, and it's called the Plan for the 136K because there's 136,000 young people facing homelessness across the country. So that's the name of the campaign, and we'll be seeing more work on that over the coming year. So I've come to the end of my section. I'm now going to hand over to Mika to talk about prevention services in particular, because ultimately what's going to bring down all these numbers is about us preventing young people becoming homeless in the first place. So over to you, Mika.
Thank you, Jonny. Good morning to you all, and thank you for joining us for our spring update. I'd like to start my part of the update with a breakdown of how well our prevention services have performed last year. We are proud to report that our education team have been successful in teaching over 12,000 young students across Hertfordshire. This is a 33% increase in reach from last year and reflects one of our ongoing key objectives, which is to increase our reach and achieve successful outcomes through our services. Last year, we received 81 referrals into our under-16s mediation service. Of these referrals, 86 were prevented from family breakdown and homelessness. A quarter of the referrals were for young people with ADHD, and around half were for young people with a diagnosed or suspected mental health condition. We are seeing an increased trend in anxiety and anger-related needs, which is having a detrimental impact on the family home, with many young people either unwilling or unable to access statutory support. Despite a number of vacancies in the service and following a challenging year for recruitment, our hub service for under 16-year-olds has seen a 12% increase in referrals, for over 16-year-olds, has seen a 12% increase in referrals going from 379 to 427. As shown, 70% of the referrals were again due to family breakdown. Our 18+ advice line continues to provide guidance and assistance with 228 calls received this year. We anticipate this will continue to increase when we complement this service with our new web chat functionality, which is due to be launched this summer. The Housing Outreach Support Service has continued to provide positive outcomes for care leavers, and as a result, we've decided to bring this entire contract in-house and finish our partnership working with Peabody. For those that remember, this original contract was initially in partnership with Aldwick Housing over 15 years ago, and we're pleased to be finalising the remaining tasks to bring their staff over to Hertfordshire Homeless. Next, I'd like to highlight the referral numbers for our services on the next slide. And these figures are indicative of the areas in Hertfordshire with greater demand. However, there is a slight disparity in those presenting to local authorities, as reflected in the earlier data provided by Jonny. Welwyn Hatfield, Stevenage and Dacorum present as our top 3 busiest areas, with Watford a close 4th. The data presented is a consolidation of all of our service provisions and highlights the necessity to try and target preventative interventions to young people as soon as possible, just as Jonny said previously. So in recognition of our desire to target prevention as early as possible, our youth education and involvement team have been extremely busy over the last few months, delivering early intervention advice and prevention training. The sessions have been extremely well received, as can be seen from the feedback here. And so we're really pleased to extend our year's pilot programme into more primary schools this year. Here in the next slide, we have Georgia, one of our educators, to tell you more about this exciting new approach.
My name is Georgia. I'm an educator at Hertfordshire Homeless. So our education service, we go into wherever there are young people really, so schools, colleges, youth groups, and we take sessions on topics that can contribute to youth homelessness. So the idea is to give young people the knowledge and tips and tools to be able to keep themselves safe and know where to go if they're ever unsafe or need advice and support. So we currently take sessions across all the ages in secondary school, so from year 7 through to year 11. Then we work with sixth form, so year 12 and year 13, and then colleges up until the ages of 24. So HYH are now working in primary schools because as a charity, we work with children from the ages of 10 with our mediation team. So it's a great way for us to be able to go into the primary schools and make sure we are reaching children of those ages. When we go into primary schools, we will be aiming to work with year 6 students. So that is students who are 10 and 11, because that is the ages of which HYH support. We currently have 5 topics that we deliver in schools, focusing on healthy relationships, the realities of homelessness, anger management, living independently, and conflict resolution. So in primary schools, the main topic we will be focusing on is conflict resolution. This session is called Solve It, Resolve It, and the aims of the session are to help students gain a better understanding of what actually happens in an argument, explore how our behaviour and communication can really have an impact in an argument, and then to think about the positive change they could make when having arguments. We will always finish the session with showing students of where they can go and get help and support if they ever need it. This fits into the curriculum because for primaries, the PSHE curriculum really encourages for young people to be aware of healthy relationships, whether that be with their friends, their families, and adults in general. So it's a great way for them to be aware of how they can keep themselves safe and how they can react in arguments. Some techniques that we use to help make children think about this topic is we would use our argument style quiz. So the children will answer how they think they would react in a certain scenario. That might be that they are ready for the argument, or it might mean that they don't like arguments at all and will shy away and rather avoid the conflict.
So once they fill out that quiz, it will give them an animal, and it allows them to reflect on maybe how they could react differently or what they could do better. We'll also use our I feel statements. So this allows the students to take ownership of really how they're feeling in that moment, rather than blaming the other person and the argument not coming to some sort of solution. We also discuss body language, tone of voice, and the language that they're using, and how that can really have an impact in the argument. So through our pilot sessions that we've held previously, we take feedback from students at the end of each session, and through those results we can see that 94% of all students that we've educated have either thought that the session was helpful or very helpful, which is fantastic. We've also had some fantastic feedback from the teachers in the class, saying that students have been referring back to the session. There are a lot of primary schools across the county, but we would love to reach and educate as many Year 6 students as we can. This will help us on our mission to break the cycle of youth homelessness, all about early intervention and prevention.
Thank you, Georgia. Following on from the fantastic work being delivered in education, our Family Link service helps to manage conflict and keep the young person in the best place for them, family home. We aim to prevent a young person from either leaving or being asked to leave their family home by providing a bespoke, personalised service for their unmet needs. Our Family Link worker has supported 17 families throughout the year and fed back that the support needs relating to these individuals is becoming more and more complex. Many are presenting with a range of needs from substance misuse, physical or mental health, educational, financial or emotional. There appear to be a range of professionals involved with families, but we often find that there is little to no coordination of the integrated services, which leads to confusion, counterproduction, and ultimately a lack of progress for the families involved. Thankfully, our worker is able to proactively focus on the needs of the young person and coordinate support accordingly, enabling them to make positive progress where required. I just wanted to mention our counselling service, which over the last year, we've successfully piloted a counselling service for young people, which received 31 internal referrals. We're looking to continue this valuable service and, subject to additional funding, grow it to meet the current demand. I would just like to share Alex's story with you to highlight the valuable work being achieved. So Alex's family reached out to HYH as their relationships were strained with conflict between them causing problems at home. Alex and his parents were offered mediation. They engaged well, identifying ways they could communicate more openly, improve their relationships. However, it became clear to the mediator that Alex also needed support with his mental health and well-being. An HYH worker met with Alex to explore how they could help. Despite being only 13 years old, Alex shared that he felt suicidal. A safeguarding referral was made to Children's Services, and he and the mental health worker completed a safety plan, which outlined what Alex would do when he felt suicidal, who he could call and talk to, and what he could do when feeling that way. They discussed Alex having therapeutic support, which he agreed might help, and an internal referral was made to our counselling service. In his first counselling session, Alex described how he had intrusive internal voices, which told him that he was stupid and that people didn't like him, especially after spending time with his friends. He hoped that counselling could help him with stress and his negative thoughts. At the second session, Alex shared that he didn't think the counselling was working because his negative thoughts weren't going away and he thought he should go on medication instead. The counsellor talked to him about this and explained how things wouldn't change straight away. And although it was his decision, it would be great if he could give the counselling sessions a little longer to help him. Alex agreed. Alex and the counsellor discussed and agreed to try meditation to support him to feel relaxed when stressed, and they practiced this together. At the next session, he bounded into the counselling room, so positive, as the meditation had really helped him, including helping him get to sleep, which had been a real issue for him. Tiredness often exacerbated his negative thoughts, so getting more sleep had a real beneficial, positive effect. The counsellors talked with him about how meditation could be used in different ways in situations of stress and would help him feel calm and get him in an anxious and ground him in anxious situations. Alex will continue to use this as a tool for resilience and to manage his worries. The counsellor also used visualisation within the sessions. Within this, Alex imagined a protective shield around himself, which would help him think positive thoughts. He imagined himself as a confident superhero, telling himself positive affirmations instead of negative thoughts, and considered how this would change his confidence and self-esteem. Alex had 6 counselling sessions in all, and as he decided at the 6th that he felt he had had enough, he was told he could return to counselling if he needed to in the future, and where else he could get some support. As we can see on the screen, feedback that he provided was absolutely fantastic and really felt that the sessions had helped him, improved his thoughts and well-being, did a very good job and improved his mental health and couldn't have done much better. Which is just fantastic to hear straight from the young person, and we hope that it continues to have a really positive impact on himself and his family and home life. Next, I'd like to go over to our Future Roots accommodation project over in Welwyn Garden City. So our Future Roots supported accommodation project continues to be a success and home to 5 young people. Since opening in January 22, the project has accommodated a total of 14 young people and supported them with a range of independent living tasks. When the residents have completed their programme of support and feel confident enough to move on, we are able to financially support them with their next accommodation by providing the deposit and first month's rent in advance once a suitable move-on property has been found. For those that have moved on, 1 has moved into private rented accommodation, 2 moved into alternative supported accommodation. This was due to being more suited to their needs as they had a higher level of support required. 2 have moved into their own housing association property. 2 more are currently bidding for a property via a housing register, and we hope that they are likely to move out soon. They're hopeful as well. And 2 moved out in a planned way, but they didn't finish their programme of support. We're really happy and really proud to say as well that whilst living in the house, 5 were able to gain employment and 7 have been in education and training. It's always nice to hear directly from those receiving our services. So for the 3rd video of the spring update, we asked our housemates if they would tell us their thoughts about living at the house. Here is the video we've produced, which really highlights some of the fantastic work being done with these young people.
I'm the living support worker at a 5-bedroomed house that has a granny flat on the side, and I live in the granny flat. I've been working for Hertfordshire Homeless for about 4.5 years. Initially, I worked as part of the street outreach team in Watford, and then I applied for the job and I got it. When I worked on the streets in Watford, I saw a lot of people who'd become homeless and teenagers, and I guess I look at this as like a prevention project, because I think if you can put the support in when people are teenagers, you know, maybe you can prevent them from becoming like entrenched or sleepers. And I really enjoy seeing young people develop their confidence. You know, some of them come from quite difficult backgrounds, and when they come, they might be really quiet and things, but then you see them, their confidence starts to build and they start to believe in themselves and think that actually, you know, they can achieve things in their life. We try and make a programme of support that fits them really. So some of them, when they come, they might be in education, but they might need some help with their budgeting. They might need help with like practical life skills, like what do you do if all the electricity goes off or the washing machine breaks down, things like that. Others, they might need some support with their emotional health, emotional well-being, because some obviously they, you know, experience trauma in their backgrounds.
Yeah, my name is Prince, I'm 19. I'm Ghanaian, 5'14". I do boxing and I work.
Hi, my name is James, I'm 18. I'm originally from Welwyn, this area. I'm also interested in boxing and a lot into UFC and sports.
Yeah, so how I came to the house was because of a family breakdown between me and my dad. You know, I grew up mostly in the UK, even though I was born in Ghana, and I spent my whole childhood, living with him, but it got to a point where we kind of always had disagreements, and that led to the family breakdown.
I had a family situation. I was living with my mum, and my mum suffers from bipolar, so it wasn't a very healthy environment, but I tried my best for years to make it work and try and meet everyone's needs and stuff like that, but it got to a point where I need to start thinking what's best for myself, and it just wasn't working, me staying there anymore. So I started sofa surfing, and then I found out about you guys, and I came here.
Positive thing is meeting people my age, being able to kind of focus on myself mentally and physically, being in a place that feels like home, 100%, and yeah, always having people around you. I've learned to kind of, speak to, open up more, being here, speaking regularly, because normally I'm a quiet person and sometimes shy. I've learned how to kind of budget how I spend my money, how I spend, and I've learned how to save a lot being here.
I've learned to be a lot more self-sufficient, and a lot more confidence in myself has grown, definitely, like to believe I can do things on my own and actually do them and feel a lot better about myself once I've done them. And doing the front and back garden, like the weeding, looking after it, and in the summer hopefully we're going to put some new plants in the garden and make it all nice, and that can help me towards my landscaping.
The support here is amazing. You can always talk to anyone about anything. That's what I remind you.
I found the support really good, and the opportunities that come I didn't expect, like a lot of things when we have our meetings and stuff like that. There's loads of fundraisers and support and everything, so you're not on your own and you don't have to worry about dealing with everything yourself.
3 years time, I wanna kind of have like a normal, I do have a normal life, but I wanna have like a good life where I've got my own place, working, doing what I love to do, and doing other activities and getting to meet people and travel around as well. Yeah.
So in September I want to go to college, get my maths, English and level 1 horticulture. So I can start landscaping because I've always been interested in that since I've been younger. In 3 years' time, I'd like to have a steady, stable job that I enjoy doing. I'd like to have a car in my own place, and I'd like to visit a lot of my family that I haven't seen in a long time. I'm very happy to be here and very grateful because it does feel like a home. Like Prince said, it does feel a lot like a home, and you can actually relax here, you know what I mean? When you come back home, you haven't got to worry about what you're coming back to. If you come back to any drama or anything, it's all peaceful here.
The other thing I really like about this project is that it's affordable for young people, because the issue that can be in supported accommodation is really expensive. So that can prevent young people from getting work, because if they get work, then they can't afford the rent. But because we are an affordable project, it enables them to do, get a job and things and still keep their home. Because we are Hertfordshire homeless, I can continue my role in some ways when they move on, where maybe a lot of other supported accommodations, when you leave the accommodation, that's it, but I can continue to support them when they get their own accommodation and, help them set up the bills and things. I always make sure that I say to them, the door is always open, because I think they've had a lot of endings in their life, and it's nice to know that they've got somewhere that they can come back to if they need to. I guess my hope would be that, they leave here confident in their own abilities, really, and able to live independently and know that they can contribute to the world.
So it's such a great video, and I'm sure you'll all join me in thanking Michelle, Prince and James for their contribution. And it really does show that, getting a stable environment, a roof over their head, can really help our young people achieve their dreams and prosper and do fantastically well. So we hope that will continue to do so. So that's the end of my update, part of the update, and I will just pass over to Caroline Neal, our head of fundraising, who is going to tell you about some of the fantastic initiatives that we've got throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you, Mika. Well, it's lovely to see so many of you on the call today. Thank you so much for joining us. As you'll have seen, there's some absolutely fantastic work going on. And, you know, above and beyond our statutory services where we receive funding from Herts County Council, within the next year, we do need to raise £500,000 in order to keep these vital services going. So there are lots and lots of different ways that you can get involved. I'm sure you already know about some of them. There are sleep outs and golf days and running and cycling. You just need to talk to us and we'll set something up for you which will be suitable for you and your team. But here are just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight to you. This summer, for the first time, we're going to have a summer soiree on Thursday, the 20th of June. This will be hosted at Mill Green Golf Club, which is a very picturesque setting. We're very excited about the event. It's going to be really fun and sociable, so a great one to bring a team along to. There's going to be live music with local bands. You'll get drinks, canapes, some lovely garden games, and we've got a photo booth. So it promises to be a really, really fun evening. And we do hope that you'll join us for that. Or if you're not able to, then please do help us to publicise this event. The other one that we are so excited about is our partnership with Helping Hearts. Many of you may know that we are one of 12 charities supported by Helping Hearts this year, with a focus on helping charities who work with children and young people within Hertfordshire. So because of this connection, any funds that we raise through Helping Hearts are actually doubled. So we're very, very excited to announce our charity track day, which is taking place in Hoddesdon at the Rye House racetrack. Now, this is where Lewis Hamilton honed his skills as a teenager. So it's a brilliant, brilliant track, and it promises to be a fantastic day. It's teams of 4. A car is £500. So you get about 30 minutes each of driving. Full training will be given. You'll have a practice lap, and then the race itself will start. Breakfast is provided, lunch is provided. It's going to be a super day. So I really, really hope that you will try and join us for this event. And please do spread word to help us sell these cars. So that's it from me. Just a couple of quick, short things there. I'm going to hand back to Jonny now, and we'll look at some questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Caroline. That's good. I think it'll be exciting to see people battling it out on the racetrack. So we haven't had any questions through the chat. I don't know if we had any questions beforehand.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
So there's one for Mika, which is, what is the most challenging thing, in your opinion, at the moment for young people, Mika?
I think echoing some of Jonny's part of the update previously is around affordability for our young people. So we're finding more and more housing associations seem to be turning our young people down due to an affordability criteria. So young people that have been nominated and are receiving benefits, they seem to be denied social housing due to not being able to afford it, which is a real challenge, because I honestly personally feel, you know, if social housing isn't there to accommodate those on benefits, we're really going to struggle to find accommodation for those young people. So I think, you know, cost of living crisis, you know, we really do hope that that's turned the corner and actually that we're on the way out of that. But at the moment, we're still seeing young people struggling. We're still seeing the impact it does have on them trying to source secure and stable accommodation. And it continues to be a challenge for us in the services.
Great, thank you, Mika. That's really really interesting. I think that's something we've seen
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.